one of my messages, one of the things that I try to say to younger people is to not make your environment define the person you are, because your choices define the person you are.
And what would you say has been the advantage of your Nigerian heritage or the disadvantage of your Nigerian heritage growing up in Italy?
I wouldn't say just my Nigerian heritage, though. I think my family situation, like my parents are really concrete people, and like even when they have always been pioneers. Like it never scared them to do something that other people never did before. Like in my neighborhood, my parents were the first group of Nigerians to maybe buy a house. They were the first ones to have like the Italian citizenship. They were the first one to open a store. So that type of mentality always, I think, gave me the sense of nothing is impossible, if you believe in it. So I'm really happy about that context. But I wouldn't say that it's just every single Nigerian has that. I must say that I am quite lucky because of that. And then I guess my Italian, I don't know, we will see. Hopefully I will see what my Italian side brings to the table once maybe my music starts like leaving the Italian boundaries, I guess. But I can imagine that the Italian culture, the Italian music, like just like the culture can be sensed through my music, I guess. Like the fact that I grew up in this environment. Like when I maybe try to link up with an African artist or I don't know, an American artist, I just realized that maybe we might think different on certain things because of course this country's influence can be perceived in my heart. Is my explanation of my life, me telling you my life story, exactly what you imagine to hear from a Black Italian?
You're a
Yeah.
creative person, so for me that was my standpoint, is just to find out about you as a creative, because I feel we're in a similar field, a little bit out of the box thinking. So I think my
Okay.
expectations was to meet somebody who does things different. That was my one expectation. The one thing that I did think maybe, which did come up, was some things that would connect. Like, oh, I relate to that. I relate. That happened to me. Because we get it in all the stories. I mean, in some ways, I think
course.
we identify together because of how society treats us sometimes, not because we have a common thought. It's not because everybody who's Black thinks the same, but if you're treated the same, you have a common story to tell each other. So in that sense, I thought there would be common threads. But I was very curious to your individual story. That's really what I wanted to explore and to have people be able to hear and be inspired by. Because being a pioneer is not easy. I think some people think, well, lucky you, you're the only one. Great, I'd love to be in a country where I can be the only one. But that's not what it's about. It's really breaking barriers. That's what the pioneer has to do. And sometimes you actually don't.
It's going to those meetings and seeing that there is no one like you and there is no one that knows your story.
Yeah. And
it's not always a nice thing.
That's the thing. It's double work, I find, because you have to prove something and then be yourself. And it's a lot of hassle. Exactly. Sometimes you just want to be, I wanted to ask you a question. It was around representation and the importance of representing Africans before slavery. It's one of my serious subjects because this is how I feel about it, Tommy. If Africans and people who are not African understood the contributions of Africans before slavery, it would reduce, may not get rid of racism, but I think it can reduce it because you have more equitable perception of each other. If we all know there have been the King Georges, but there's also been the kings in Ashanti Kingdom, if we know there's the William M, balancing that out. So from my research, the more and more I dig in, the more it's amazing to me what I've discovered
100%.
about
100%.
What are your thoughts, Tommy?
Of course, like sometimes I really wish I knew more about my people. Even sometimes I ask my parents, like, when you were in high school, what did they teach you? But they never managed to tell me, like, I mean, in history class, I mean, like,
Yeah.
from what I heard, what do your parents tell you when you ask them this question? My parents tell me that a lot of time they teach them more European history
Yes,
than
yes.
actually African
On the
history.
continent, you learn the colonials history. So I learned British history. I started studying African history at university in England by an Englishman. He was teaching me my own history.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the best or worst job that the colonizer managed to do is really erase our past. No, no, the biggest job that the colonizer did was to erase our history. That's why sometimes I remember I was even arguing with an African friend. They was saying, yeah, yeah, the Europeans won because they had better technology, they had better everything and stuff like that, and there was nothing in our land. And I was like, no, you just don't know. You just don't know. How can you assume that there was nothing going on in the in the whole continent? So
Do you want to have a look at pictures on WhatsApp? They're actually pre-colonial images of kings in Africa. I think one is Congo, and one is when the Dutch visited the king of Congo and bowed down and, you know, paid reverence. Obviously, some treaty of sorts that they probably reneged on very quickly afterwards.
okay.
But anyway, it's just tell me what you feel when you see those images.
Yeah, that's the part of history that was erased,
Yeah,
that enabled racism.
exactly.
I must say that the people who created racism and the social system we're living through were geniuses of evilness, man. I mean, the
Yes.
colonizer.
I call it a
How
little
could
bit
they see it through,
psychopathic.
man?
It's a bit psychopathic. That's what
How
I'd
could
call
they
it.
see it through, though, that they were going to own the history for so much? I wonder
Well,
what
you
type
know,
of evil
Tommy,
geniuses they were.
Tommy, we only perceive life from what we're provided with, the images, and that's why images is so important. You know, the image of Jesus Christ. I have an auntie who has a full wall of Jesus Christ in her living room, and I'm not against religion, but it shows you if she's looking a blonde, blue-eyed guy on her wall every day, how
Yeah,
will she fight anybody who oppresses her who looks like that? You cannot, because
exactly.
you're going against
100%.
God. So that's the marketing campaign that won, because it got rid of any opposition. You can't fight your God. You can't.
Ciao gente, io sono Tommy Kuti. Voglio che tutti quanti voi sappiate che il vostro ambiente, la vostra storia, il vostro passato non deve definire la persona che sarete nel futuro. E so che è una cosa banale che dicono spesso tutti gli artisti e dicono tutto è impossibile. Però a volte il mondo, le persone che ci circondano crescendo ci fanno quasi credere che molte delle persone che, come me, le persone diverse, non possono ambire al successo, non possono ambire a raggiungere i propri obiettivi. Io spero che col tempo questa cosa cambi e spero che ogni mio fratello di seconda generazione trovi la forza per credere in se stesso e per realizzare i propri obiettivi. Peace.
Please like and subscribe. Shout at Hues Films.